Hello and welcome to this week's custom, a slightly longer video for a much smaller custom. Now this guy's completely scratch built, and I'm surprised he worked as well as he did. You can see just how small he is, and I'll be doing some size comparisons to show you his true minuscule size. But first, let's get into the actual 3D files. So as per usual, Tinkercad, the beginning of pretty much everything I do at this stage. And there you can see most of his parts kind of held up. The Omnitrix is just the same Omnitrix that I've been using for the last few customs, just rescaled and kind of slammed on his back. Now his head had an interesting start because I made a Crafty Gecko stop motion armature in my second year of university. This is that same original file. I put it in Blender, gave it a little bit of a retool, and then brought it back here so I could turn into Grey Matter's head, because it had a similar head shape and it was just an easier starting point. And you can see here it's been through like its fair share of reshaping, but you can still see the original shape there. This black strip is just taken from the head that I've kind of cut into this slice and then just placed back on top of the head. So let me just show you what that looks like. Doing this in Tinkercad just makes it very like complex looking. Those are literally just holes to show that I've cut it into that slice. And then his eyes are a mix of obviously the hole for the rectangle, the semi-spheres, and the black rings are, I think they're just donuts. So fairly simple head design. Obviously I did take it into Blender and do a few more touch-ups, but I'll go over all the Blender files afterwards. Here you can see how the torso started off. It's literally just 5 cubes that have had their radiuses increased, steps increased, and set at different angles. And then I put it in Blender, came out with this. You can see I've created a nice like ridge for his ribs. And this is mainly just to allow for the articulation. I don't want to have a really thin wall thickness for his upper torso. And you can see here I've done the same kind of line down the middle as I did with the head. Exact same method, just chopped in half and then repositioned. You can see all the holes for the joints and the hinges. And if I move the bottom section away, you can see the way the magnets slot in, which I'm actually very happy with. This ended up working very nicely. There are 2 magnets in that center hole, one to attach to the body, one to attach to the head. And you can see the divot here, just for that sphere of ball bearing, which we'll see later on as well. Nice little taint shot, which is where I put the magnet for his legs. It was the only way I could really get the sizing kind of correct to hold everything together without making it too kind of disjointed. Arms, very simple, literally just a cylinder with a sphere at the top, and then the sphere shape's taken out to allow for the ball bearings. Then his arm, you can see he's not got a hand. I repurposed Heat Blast's hand and just stretched it out a bit, but that's the socket for the magnet. And then his thigh has a very similar treatment to the arm, only it's a cone instead of a cylinder. Again, just 2 divots for those ball bearings. And now his knee socket's quite interesting because it's the only one that I've actually had to offset. So you can see the magnet's at a slight angle when it goes in. So just trying to like show you the angle it goes in at. It goes in at a very slight angle. And then the magnet for the feet just goes straight in through the bottom. And you can see that connection point there where the magnet just has enough to peek through to catch the ball bearing. Now onto the Blender files. Here's the head, you can see it's been smoothed out a fair bit. I've also gone and redefined some areas, reshaped the head slightly. And gone and given him the weird kind of gills that he's got. I don't actually know what those are. I should probably do my research into grey matter anatomy. Then here you can see the hands. Again, just that socket that I took. And then Heat Blast's hands that I've stretched out to give him the weird kind of creepy appearance that grey matter has. And then his body, I've only really imported just to smooth those ridges over. Again, I don't know why I'm showing the taint again. Didn't need to see that. But yeah, I've just gone and smoothed over those edges, so it's a little bit of a nicer looking figure I wanted to put together. But this is the summary of all of his parts in Chitubox. And you can see that there. Sliced on the Elegoo Mars for Ultra. Again, very generously provided by Elegoo Mars themselves. You see, it says it's busy, but it's not. I'm able to send it anyway. Wi-Fi compatibility makes 3D printing so much nicer. And you see there, sent to the printer. Do I want to start printing immediately? Yes. And now it's being printed. Perfect. Then here you can see that lovely printer just going to work. This printed in 25 minutes, I think. So the entire file was done in 25 minutes, and that's not even as fast as this thing can go. It's just an efficient setting that I have it on. So yeah, under half an hour to get my custom printed. Now these are the tiny ball bearings that I'm using for the joints. You can see they're just over 2mm diameter, about not far off 2.5mm. And the magnets are actually 2mm, bang on, with 1mm depth. Just so they've got a little bit more strength to them. See, the thicker a magnet is, the more strength it has. The thinner it is, the less it's going to have much of a reaction. Then here's the print once it's been washed and cured. And hopefully it's now sinking in just how small these parts are. I won't show the process of removing all the sports. It really just isn't that fun to watch. So here's a little clip of what I normally go through. And again, I'm only going to show the head, because putting all the magnets and the ball bearings in just... Not only is it very difficult and finicky, doing it on camera would be agony. So just sanding off the actual bumps left from the supports. And this is the method I chose to glue all the parts together. Using the magnets as a nice rod to make it just a little bit easier to handle the ball bearings. So just dipping it in the glue, putting it in its socket, and then leaving it to dry for a bit. And that's one joint done. Now with the hands, obviously it's slightly different because I'm putting a magnet in and not a ball bearing. But it's pretty much the same thing. I dip the end of the magnet in super glue, wipe off, like if there's too much, I like dab it just to get some excess off. And you can see it holds on quite nicely. Here's the upper arm. And there's our first complete joint. Then you've got the torso. You can see I've actually sanded the inside a little bit more, just to remove all the nasty support material that was in there. You can see the two magnets in the center, well you can only see one of them, and then you can see the two either side, and that other one on top. And obviously because of how small it is, and the fact that it's magnets, these joints aren't like solid. They very easily will hold a pose, but they're very easy to move just by touching them because they're so small. So here you can see the full assembly of where the ball bearings go, where the magnets go. And you can hopefully see that it is gonna hold a pose. Like it's not flimsy, it's not gonna kind of fall over on itself the second you try and stand it up. I've tried to make sure the tolerances are right for this, and I just got lucky and they are. See the torso going on top there, or the chest going on top of the torso, and then the head. Really good range with the head, you can look down quite a bit, look up quite a bit. Obviously he's got his tilt. You've got a good range with the arms as well. The elbow doesn't quite get to 90, I don't think. I think the knees are just ever so slightly short of 90. But the hips come all the way up. He gets into some better hip poses than a lot of Spider-Man figures that I own. Yeah, very, very small. Which made painting a challenge. So I happen to have this weird like hook magnet, which ended up being so useful. It's now covered in paint, but it was a worthy sacrifice. In terms of spray paints I did use these primers. I also used matte coat of the same brand, obviously just to secure the paint and make sure it doesn't flake off or crack or rub. There's key colours down there, so now it's onto the difficult bit. You can see I've taken the latex off the back. I did latex over the Omnitrix just so that it would stay grey when I did the white coat over the top. And now just trying to paint all the black lines on. I did the exact same for all the black. It's just this permanent marker for the most part. When it's clear lacquered, you're not going to have any bleed. The lacquer does a very good job of holding it in place. And now this is how I've been painting the Omnitrix. every single custom has been painted like this. I probably could have done with taking some of the latex off this brush. It's normally not quite so thick, and the Omnitrix normally isn't so small. So this was a bit of a hassle to try and do. But you can see there, that's how I do it. I just kind of let the thin paint flow to all the edges. And then because it's black, I can sand it down, and it reveals the black edges again. Obviously you don't sand it too much, otherwise you'll end up taking the whole shape off. This is the green I chose to use for his eyes. I realised in theory it could have been a bit brighter, it could have had a bit more yellow. But I didn't really want to go and mix a custom mix just for this. So I just used the closest I had. I think I did 2 coats of this green just to get it to a good enough hue that I was happy with. And I did not do this on camera because, my god, this was so difficult. Trying to just outline the black of his eyes. I did use the very small end of the permanent marker for that. More black airbrush paint. And a sharpened kebab stick to try and get it to as fine as a point as possible. So that I can kind of just drip it into his pupils. And the surface tension does the rest of the work for me here. You can see it kind of just spreads out. It needs a little bit of a push just to get it to all the edges. But for the most part, it's a case of you just put it down and it will spread all the way to the edges. I'm fairly sure Warhammer customizers will know exactly how this works. I've seen this used a lot in the Warhammer community. Just wiping off a bit of excess there. And then bringing the pen back in, just do the stripe across the front of his head. And that's all his paintwork done. He's relatively simple in terms of paintwork. You can see I've not painted his mouth or his gills. I'm not risking messing that up because of how small it is. But yeah, very, very happy with this guy. The poses he gets in are just... For such a small figure, he works very, very nicely. Yeah, I am going to pat myself on the back. This is one of the best customs I've made. If not, it's just the best. Like, he's just so funny to look at. And the fact that he works, he's got all the articulation, he's got hips, knees, ankles, diaphragm, shoulders, elbows, neck. He's got a fair few points of articulation there, and a lot of detail. Obviously I couldn't make some of the joints as thin as they're meant to be. You know, if I was going to make them that thin and to this scale, they would just snap. And they also wouldn't be able to take the magnets or the ball bearings. So I have had to thicken some of his joints, like his arms are a bit thicker than they should be. His shins are much thicker than they should be. Those shins are like toothpicks in the cartoon. So I have had to make some adjustments for that. But yeah, overall very, very happy with this guy. And so this is the comparison of him with just your average 6-inch scale figure. And you can see here, he doesn't even come close to reaching like the top of his knees. He's absolutely tiny. And I'll do a coin comparison in a second. I did used to have a quarter, but I'm just having to use a British 50p piece. Yeah, again, tiny. But anyway, I'm so happy with how this guy came out. I'm going to show you in a second just the magnetism he has, because he's got magnets in his feet. He can be stuck on, again, anything magnetic. So posing's quite fun with him. But thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think of this custom. This one's just mad. I'm very happy with myself. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in probably next week's video.